They had suspects, they had confessions, they even thought they had patterns. But every time the rain fell, they were wrong. This case didn't fail because the killer was smart. It failed because the system was broken. And by the time the truth arrived, it was already far too late. In October 1986, the quiet Hwasong province of South Korea is shaken by its first murder. What initially seems like a single, tragic case quickly escalates into something far darker: a series of killings. A young woman is found dead near a field, her body discarded in a way that leaves no doubt about the brutality of the crime. The villagers immediately alert the authorities, and head detective Park Do-man arrives at the scene. He surveys the area, checking a nearby sewer, where he discovers the decomposing body of the victim. The signs of abuse are clear. She was assaulted before her life was brutally taken. With little to go on, Park returns to the station, determined to catch the killer, and begins interrogating a list of potential suspects. If you're drawn to true crimes where the truth hides in plain sight and justice keeps slipping through human error, stay with me. This case doesn't unfold with clean answers or heroic victories. It descends into obsession, brutality, and one of the most chilling investigative failures in history. Watch closely, because every small mistake matters. The investigation drags on, slow and cumbersome. Park struggles with an old typewriter as he types out the suspect's responses. He also takes pictures of each suspect, while his colleague, Kwon, an underrated but sharp female inspector, organizes the photos into a book. Park believes the key to identifying the killer lies in their eyes, and he spends long hours staring into each suspect's gaze, hoping to see through them. Just as the team struggles to make progress, news comes of another murder in the same area. Park rushes to the scene and discovers a footprint, a potential lead. But before he can investigate further, disaster strikes. A tractor runs over the footprint, destroying what could have been the key to solving the case. The frustration grows as the investigation becomes more complicated with each new murder, and the truth feels ever more elusive. Months pass, and the case grows colder with every passing day. Detective Park is left at the station with no evidence to show for his efforts. Just when it seems the case is slipping through his fingers, a breakthrough comes. Or so he thinks. His girlfriend, Young, tells him about Baek, a mentally handicapped young man who had been seen stalking the second victim before her death. This new lead sparks a glimmer of hope. Park rushes to the station, bringing Baek in for questioning. With his colleague, Cho and they resort to brutality, beating the young man in an attempt to force a confession. Baek admits to stalking the victim, but insists he didn't kill her. In the following scene, a rather hilarious encounter unfolds on a quiet road. A man approaches a woman, asking for directions. She doesn't respond, terrified like everyone else in town due to the recent murders. As she attempts to flee, she trips and falls. The man follows after attempting to help her. At that moment, Park appears, tackling the man, assuming he's the attacker. The man, Yoon, reveals he's a detective from Seoul, volunteering to help with the case. On the way to the station, Park, desperate to solve the case and take glory, returns to the crime scene with Baek's shoes, making a fake footprint. He takes a photo and returns to the station to confront Baek again. This time, he shows the staged evidence, but Baek, despite being mentally challenged, still denies being involved in the murder. Frustrated, the detectives take Baek to a field, threatening to bury him alive unless he confesses. Terrified and with no other option, Baek starts to explain the murder, claiming he saw it in a dream. He describes how the victim was first strangled with her bra, then bound with her stockings. The detectives are shaken by the brutality and the twisted details of the case. They press him for more details, but when Baek claims he doesn't know, the beatings resume. The next day, Baek is wrongfully declared the killer, and the police take him for a spot inspection in front of reporters. Just as they're about to make the arrest official, Detective Yoon, who's been watching everything from the side, intervenes. He examines Baek's hands, scarred and too weak to have tied the knots around the victim's neck, and asserts that Baek could not have committed the crime. The villagers, realizing Baek is being framed, turn on the officers and rally behind Baek to free him. Unlike Park, who is erratic, Yoon has advanced training in crime scene analysis and is far more calculating. Meanwhile, a senior officer from Seoul, Sergeant Shin Dong-chul, arrives to lead the team. Shin quickly gets to work, asking the officers if there are any similarities between the murders. They are silent, realizing they've been too focused on framing an innocent man instead of hunting the real killer. Fortunately, Yoon steps in, pointing out that all the murders occurred on rainy days, and the victims wore red clothes. Then, Shin asks a chilling question. Did all the victims die in the same way? Yoon's answer shocks everyone. There's a third victim. In the past week, another girl, wearing red, has gone missing on a rainy day. The police quickly find her body, confirming Yoon's suspicions. The case now has a clear pattern. 3 victims, all killed in similar ways, all on rainy days. With the pattern confirmed, the police finally recognize the murders as a serial killing. Dong-chul suggests they prepare for the next rainy day, believing the killer will strike again. The following night, the rain suddenly begins to pour, signaling it's time for them to execute their plan. Detective Kwon, dressed in red, walks the murder area hoping to draw out the killer. Moments pass, but no one appears. Disappointed, the team heads to a nearby checkpost to take shelter. They encounter 2 schoolgirls walking down the road, and Kwon invites them in, wondering why they're walking such a lonely path at this hour. One tells a strange tale of a killer who stays in an abandoned public toilet during the day and only comes out at night. The detectives laugh it off, dismissing it as a wild story. Meanwhile, a woman sits at home, listening to the radio when she gets an unexpected call. The voice on the other end urges her to visit immediately. Wearing a red jacket, she hesitates, then switches to something less conspicuous, hoping to avoid drawing attention. As she steps outside, she hums a song to calm her nerves. But as she walks toward the fields, she hears a whistle. Her instincts freeze her in place. She knows what's lurking in the dark. Desperate to escape, she runs, but before she can shout for help, a man pounces on her. The next morning, the detectives find her lifeless body, strangled with her own undergarments, just like the others. Back at the station, Kwon reveals a crucial discovery. A list of songs played on the radio during each murder. She notes that the same song aired every night the women were murdered, and the person behind the request specifically asked for it on rainy days, matching the dates of the killings. Park brushes it off with a laugh, but Shin and Yoon take the lead, digging into the mystery. Yoon visits the radio station hoping to find the postcard with the song request, but it's been long discarded. However, Yoon and Park soon clash as Park feels threatened by Yoon's growing influence, believing he's usurping his role and proving to be more skilled than him. Later that night, Park and Cho decide to try the traditional way. They visit the crime scene, spreading a talisman on the ground and smearing mud from the scene onto a piece of paper, believing that the killer's face will appear once it dries. Just then, they hear footsteps approaching. Panicked, they quickly hide in the bushes, waiting for whatever comes next. The detectives are convinced they've found the murderer when they hear approaching footsteps, but to their surprise, it's Yoon, arriving to inspect the scene. They remain calm to see what he's up to, but then another man appears. He begins pleasuring himself to a woman's lingerie, an act that disgusts the detectives. Yoon-ho, eager to make a move, accidentally causes a noise, alerting the man. In a flash, he bolts, and the detectives, including Yoon, give chase. They finally corner him at a construction site, despite his attempt to disguise himself as a construction worker. They take the man into custody and interrogate him harshly, but he denies any involvement in the murders. Instead, he claims he's just indulging in a sick fantasy. As the investigation unfolds, the detectives learn that the man is actually a responsible family man, diligent in his daily life. Outside, word spreads among the villagers, who rally in protest, demanding the release of the man. They've had enough of police brutality and discrimination, fueling a growing tension in the town. Frustrated by the lack of progress, Yoon seeks out the girls who had told him about the rumored killer hiding in public toilets. After speaking with them, he heads to the abandoned toilet, where he encounters a woman. Terrified, she immediately locks herself in. When Yoon identifies himself as a detective, she hesitates but eventually opens the door, agreeing to help. She leads him to a house where the rumors originated. The house belongs to a woman, visibly shaken, who reveals she is a survivor of a similar attack. Listening to her story, Yoon realizes that she too was targeted by the same serial killer they've been hunting. But the only significant detail she can offer is that the killer had very soft hands. Rushing back to the station, Yoon checks the hands of the man they previously interrogated. When he confirms they're not soft, he asks them to release him, much to Park's frustration. Just then, Kwon turns on the radio and the familiar song, the one linked to the murders, begins to play. Coincidentally, the rain starts to fall again, signaling that another murder is about to happen. Without wasting any time, Kwon rushes to the radio station, hoping to find the crucial postcard. But after an hour of searching, the detectives are called to the scene of another crime. The body of the latest victim is discovered, with a small piece of peach lodged in her private part. Meanwhile, Kwon finally locates the postcard at the radio station. The song request was made by a factory worker named Hyun. The detectives swiftly take him into custody, and the first thing Yoon does is check his hands. To his surprise, they match the description. They're soft, just as the killers should be. The interrogation begins, and Hyun admits to sending the postcards but denies any involvement in the murders. He insists he won't confess to something he didn't do. This only angers the detectives, but with their reputation already tarnished, they can't afford to resort to force. When they press him about the peaches, Hyun becomes visibly uncomfortable and starts lashing out. Cho, convinced Hyun is the killer, loses control and beats him mercilessly. His actions angers Shin, who scolds and kicks him out of the interrogation room. With no solid leads left, the team finds themselves back at square one. In a last-ditch effort, they revisit all the previous clues. As they listen to Baek's confession, they realize he described the incident as a bystander. He didn't seem like the murderer, but someone who witnessed it. Park and Yoon head to Baek's family restaurant, but when they arrive, they find Cho, who seems downcast and intoxicated due to his humiliating suspension. Cho starts a fight, causing chaos to erupt in the restaurant. Suddenly, Baek arrives at the scene and, in a fit of rage, hits Yoon-ho with a broken table leg, causing a rusty nail to puncture his leg. Realizing his mistake, Baek flees, and in a twist of fate, ends up at the scene of the first murder where he climbs a pole. Park and Yoon give chase, arriving shortly after. They plead with him to come down, insisting they only want to talk, but Baek refuses, terrified that they'll harm him. With no other choice, they decide to go ahead and interrogate him again, pushing for more answers. Believing they're finally close to solving the case, the detectives show Baek a photo of Hyun, but instead of reacting, Baek begins rambling incoherently about a house fire. Just then, an angry mob of villagers arrives and attacks them. Terrified, Baek climbs down, running aimlessly through the field. In his panic, Baek mindlessly stumbles onto the train tracks, and in an instant he's struck down, his life tragically cut short. The next day, the news of Baek's death spreads, and the police station is flooded with calls. One call stands out. The forensics lab has found a semen sample from the latest crime scene. The problem? The technology in Korea is too outdated to analyze it. The sample must be sent to the United States for testing, and now they're left waiting for results. Meanwhile, Park gets tragic news from the hospital. Yoon-ho's leg, infected from the rusty nail, must be amputated to prevent further damage from the spreading tetanus. Elsewhere, a woman walks cautiously to work, on edge from the constant stream of news about the ongoing murders. A schoolgirl passes her by, and despite the tense atmosphere, the two don't interact. But the cowman grabs the schoolgirl from behind, abducts her, and takes her to a secluded spot. There, he ties her up, assaults her, and kills her. The next day, Yoon rushes to the crime scene, now swarming with reporters. The girl's body is discovered, and the evidence points to the same serial killer. As Yoon processes the heartbreak that he couldn't protect her, this was the same girl who had pointed him toward the toilet woman, his anger boils over. He storms to Hyun, ready to finish what he started. He drags Hyun out of his apartment, beating him mercilessly. Convinced that Hyun is the killer, he pours all his pain and frustration into the attack. Just as he's about to pull the trigger, Park arrives with the DNA results from the semen sample. It clears Hyun of all charges. With that revelation, the detectives find themselves back at square one, with no solid leads and the killer still at large. A few days later, the case is officially closed, leaving the detectives in a state of uncertainty. Time passes, and it's 2003. Park, now retired and married to Yoon, enjoys breakfast with his family. He's left behind the force and is now a successful businessman. But something draws him back to the crime scene. to the very drain where he found the first body years ago. As he squats there, lost in thought, a little girl approaches. She asks what he was looking for. The man replied that he was reminiscing about something he had done there years ago. A chill runs down Park's spine as the weight of her words sinks in. The killer could still be out there and planning to strike again. The movie ends, leaving us with the chilling reminder that some monsters still lurk in the shadows, their faces never truly known. Even more unsettling is the thought that these monsters may never be uncovered. This story is based on the true events of South Korea's first serial killer. In total, the killer claimed 15 victims, and the case remained unsolved for 30 years. When Memories of Murder was released, the mystery remained. But in 2020, with the help of advanced forensics, the killer was finally identified as Lee Chun-jae. He is now serving a life sentence. 30 years, no arrest, no justice. If stories like this stay with you long after they end, like the video, subscribe for more real cases behind unforgettable films, and let me know which crime story should be next.